Welcome to the video overview of the Tier 2 Vocabulary Intervention, Curious About Words. It is intended for use with students in kindergarten through 3rd grade. The goal of this video is to get you prepared and confident as you begin this MTSS intervention with your students. We will look at how to select students for the intervention, how to use the published materials provided for this intervention, and how to use data from progress monitoring to determine the next steps for the student. This intervention uses Curious About Words, which is published by Houghton Mifflin Harcourt and aligns with our Journeys English Language Arts curriculum in grades K through 3. These materials are available in every building and consist of a teacher's guide and 2 read-aloud volumes at each grade level. It is a Tier 2 intervention for students in grades K-3 who have difficulty with vocabulary. The vocabulary taught is supportive of but not identical to the Journeys weekly text. It is important that you use the same lesson as you are teaching in Journeys. For example, if you are on Unit 3, Lesson 13 in Journeys, you would also use Unit 3, Lesson 13 in Curious About Words. Here are some guidelines to help you determine that vocabulary is the best intervention for your student. Students in grades K-3 who are struggling with understanding vocabulary in grade level text and who score low on the vocabulary intervention screener. The cut score for this screener has yet to be determined, so at this time use professional judgment. Students in grades 2 and 3 who score below 75% for comprehension on the QRI or IRI. Other factors to consider would be the student's English language proficiency and early literacy experiences. Using the diagnostic questions that are available on the MTSS website will help you in the selection process to determine the student's priority needs. The screener should be completed by an observer on students being considered for this intervention. More than one person can observe and complete this screener. Observing a child in multiple settings will give a more complete picture of the student's language. This intervention should be implemented as an additional small group lesson. Lessons are available in the Curious About Words curriculum and take approximately 15 to 20 minutes daily. Remember to match the lesson to the lesson being taught in Journeys. Pre-tests are given prior to beginning the weekly intervention instruction. A post-test is given on the last day of the week following instruction. Data from these pre- and post-tests should be recorded on the progress monitoring sheet weekly. There are 2 texts available each week. If the small group meets 5 days a week, both texts can be used. If a specialist who meets with a student only 2 to 3 days per week is delivering this intervention, then only one of the texts can be used. If this is the case, choose the text based on the needs shown on the weekly pre-test. It's very important to have all your materials ready before beginning an intervention. The first thing you will want to do is to print and follow the fidelity checklist found with the intervention. The fidelity checklist is a guideline of steps that need to be followed before and during an intervention and gives ideas for decision making after the intervention is completed. Then you will need to determine where and when the group will meet and who will be implementing the intervention. If you are using a building para or aide, make sure that they go to one of the district trainings provided for this intervention. It will also be important for the classroom teacher to be in close contact with that para or aide to monitor the progress of the student in the intervention. Locate the Curious About Words books and print off the pre- and post-tests for the first lesson. These will need to be printed weekly based on which lessons are being taught. A video is available if you would like to see a lesson being taught. The standard for literature for this intervention is to interpret words and phrases as they are used in a text, including determining technical, connotative, and figurative meanings, and analyze how specific word choices shape meaning or tone. The language standard is: the student will determine or clarify unknown and multiple meaning words and phrases using a variety of strategies. The ideal grouping for this intervention is 2 to 4 students. You may include up to 6 students if cooperative learning strategies are practiced with fidelity. There is a video available to watch for ideas for groups larger than 4, but not greater than 6. Each lesson is outlined in the teacher's manual provided for each grade level. The lessons format is the same each week with slight variations. Progress monitoring is done weekly through pre- and post-tests, and the length of the intervention will be determined by students' performance. Because the vocabulary is directly taught during the intervention, students should score higher on the post-test than on the pre-test. The expectation for this intervention is that the student will score 90% or above on the post-test. Student scores on the pre-test should increase as they begin to use the strategies introduced and practiced in the intervention. If a student scores 70% or greater on 3 out of 4 pre-tests and scores 90% or greater on weekly post-tests, they have reached their goal and can be dismissed from the intervention. The progress monitoring form is not included in the Curious About Words curriculum. It can be found in the vocabulary intervention document. Scores should be entered on the form weekly for each student. Watch for 2 trends. First, since vocabulary is taught during the lesson, students' post-test scores should be increasing to 90% or above. As students become more proficient with vocabulary, their pre-test scores should also be increasing to 70% or above. If a student scores 70% or greater on 3 out of 4 pre-tests, they have reached their goal and can be dismissed from the intervention. Please read through the intervention and curriculum materials, and if you have any further questions about the vocabulary intervention, you can contact your Building Instructional Resource teacher at the IRC or email Mary Jo Fox.